Hello and welcome to another edition of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in their communities doing beautiful things. And speaking of that, very excited this week to have with us Jake Sillick from the Cup.us, the number one provider in media coverage by far in the United States of media coverage, statistics, history, you name it, regarding the U.S. Open Cup. If you're not familiar with the U.S. Open Cup and what it is, I should say the Lamar Hunt Open Cup, because I'm a Columbus Crew fan myself, so I should have stated that. But it's the longest standing Open Cup competition. And I think, Jake, one of the things that people don't understand, they think MLS kind of started around here in the 90s in this country, but the U.S. Open Cup goes all the way back to, I believe, like 1914. Yep. And it's just tremendous. So thanks so much for hopping on here with us. The first thing I would like to just ask is, can you explain to everybody a little bit about what is the Cup.us and how did you first become involved?
Yeah, sure. So the Cup.us is, like you said, largest media coverage of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Josh, the editor and chief editor and founder, founded this website, 21 years ago, 2003. We just celebrated that. It's like, hey, now we can drink alcohol. And since then, it's grown and it's just become a big team of mostly volunteers. Honestly, we put a little bit of advertising, not a whole lot. We have a Patreon if you want to support that. That's really it. It's just enough to keep the website up and running and our costs. But most everybody's doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And my job, I kind of came in about 8 years ago. I want to say maybe it was 2017. I think it was right after I moved to Iowa. I think that's 2017. It's about 7 years. Josh kind of reached out to me. He saw me on social media, on Twitter mostly. He's like, "Hey, you're really into this. You want to help me out?" And I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'd be glad to." And it kind of evolved from there. I've written a few game articles when I've been in the area, but I'm not the best writer. I'm an engineer, so I stick to more technical writing and things like that. And I'm always kind of just plugged in online. So if you ever see a tweet from our Twitter handle at U.S. Open Cup, it's probably me, most likely.
Yeah.
And I don't shy away from that. Sometimes we have fun. Sometimes we get into it, but I like to have the facts out there so everybody knows what's actually going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, as you are the expert on this topic, can you enlighten everybody a little bit more on just what is the Open Cup in general?
Sure. Yeah. So pretty much it started really in England with the FA Cup that formed in the late 1800s of just a competition of, hey, let's get together everybody in the country that's got a soccer club, football club, in there over there, and just let's play a knockout tournament and decide who is a champion from that.
All
And
levels, right?
all levels, everybody.
Yep.
Everybody, it doesn't matter. You're a newly formed professional team, you're in. You're playing on a Sunday, you're in. And it just kind of formed from there. A lot of people think it's related to the promotion relegation. In some ways, maybe it is, but it was formed about 30 years before promotion relegation started in England. So, it's kind of always been its own thing. And so that expanded and formed, and as the United States Soccer Federation, or just what it was called back then, had a few names. We're going back 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
They formed their own competition. It was called the National Challenge Cup at the time, and there were professional teams that were formed in the early 1900s in U.S. soccer, and there's a whole history behind that. And I'm not the history person. I only have the surface level here. We have great historians on staff. We've got great historians that we talk to that know this back and front, that could tell you a lot better. But from there, it kind of just evolved from the deflation of professional soccer around the Great Depression, but then formed back up. And then for most of its lifetime, it was mostly just an amateur only competition. That's not necessarily like it was against professionals being a part of it. It was just which just wasn't geared towards it. So everybody's all like, "Oh, well, the old NASL in the '70s never participated in it." It's like,
Mm,
well, it wasn't really the same competition. It was just all these
yeah.
amateurs and things like that. And maybe they could have changed it, but there wasn't political willpower, whatever you want to call it, or something to
Yeah.
have that. And then as we get into the '90s and MLS is forming, and they're saying, "Hey, we've got this competition, and we see the success of the FA Cup, of the people call of Coppa Italia, of all of those competitions, and we should reform our own competition to include all levels of soccer, from the amateurs that are already a part of it to now including the professionals." And so a part of MLS forming was the reformation, or what we call on our website the modern era of the
Mm,
U.S. Open Cup. So that started in technically 1995, when we included the lower division professional teams in the competition, and then 1996 was when MLS has joined in, and then it's been there. So we've got almost 30 years of this modern era history of all levels of soccer in this country participating in a knockout single elimination tournament to decide a national champion, as U.S. Soccer calls it.
yeah, and absolutely, and obviously, someone loves soccer, but one of the greatest competitions, definitely in our country, and one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you guys on here is to continue to spread the knowledge, hopefully, to everyone if we can, and just an amazing competition. I really don't think people truly grasp the concept of the Open Cup. That, like you said, back in the 1920s, I think people kind of think soccer here started with MLS. Like you said in '96, and there were teams and different ethnicities, major cities, immigrants forming teams back in the 1920s. And it was just an open tournament, like you said. You could put a team together,
Yep.
and now anyone that understands the Open Cup or the FA Cup in England, those teams get on a magical run. It's there's just nothing else like it. It really isn't. And like you said, one game you got a shot with the big boys. There's just nothing like it. Before we move on, I want you to give a shout out to a couple of the other guys that help you a lot. I know there's several guys on your staff with the Cup.us that really do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Michael Batista has been with us for just as long as me, if not longer. He's based out of New York, kind of is the every guy. He does a lot of New York Ripples coverage, but when it comes time for the Amateur Cup, which is a significant part of this, kind of the continuation of what left when we left the modern era, was the amateur organization USASA said we still want to keep an amateur competition only, and so
Mm,
he's been the forefront of covering that and getting all the statistics together and things like that. And I don't know what we do without Michael. He's been so huge on stuff like that. Chuck Nolan Jr. is one of our historians, and he's been so amazing, not just on the historian side, but also on just really general game coverage. Any of our round preview articles you see are generally put together by him, including all the statistics and things that you see. What a team is, maybe like what MLS team that's playing is against the lower division, or
mm,
where they are on the road or something like that. He's compiled all the statistics together and gets those articles ready in record time. And we've got a whole bunch of other people. Phil Nagley is based out of Philadelphia. He's been huge on just kind of keeping our website together. One of the things that he did was look at our schedule and reformatted all of that to kind of look a little bit better on mobile devices and stuff like that. So we've got a whole team of people and volunteers across this country. I'm kind of more of a game day operation, social media person, and I kind of direct everybody on game days and form everybody into our Slack channels, make sure everybody's aware of where to post your stuff and things like that, and kind of just organize from there. Um, and we have so many people
mm,
that have written articles for us, that have covered games from major cities to the smallest of towns. We have a guy in southeast United States. I believe he's based out of around Augusta, Georgia, and he has gone to just about every southeastern city to cover a game for us this year. You name it, he's been there, in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Uh, I think even almost to Florida. I think even as far as South Georgia to Menta, I believe. Um, he's been incredible. His name's Forrest, and he brings his kids along, and so that's just an example of sort of the many volunteers that we have on our staff. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, I was telling you beforehand, off camera, I've helped a little bit. I'm not gonna lie and act like I've helped very much, but I have. That's how I got to know you guys. I have helped just a couple little things, and I can tell people out there if you watch this, that first of all, like you alluded to, everyone is a volunteer. Everyone that does these things are just doing it out of their love for soccer, the Open Cup, whatever. Uh, you know, Soccer in their smaller communities, whatever it might be. But I can attest to you, and I know you would agree that the work that goes on behind the scenes on those game days, leading up to game days, people voluntarily, writing match previews and covering games. It's unbelievable. I really can't, like I said, I can't thank you enough, not only for just what you do, but for being behind the scenes and seeing what that stuff. It's just mind-boggling to me, and so really excited to share that with everyone, and very appreciative to all of you guys for doing that. So another exciting point about talking about this right now is people might or might not be aware. There's a little bit of drama, a little hysteria right now between the
Drama.
Leagues Cup,
What drama?
the
No, there's
league,
no drama.
the Leagues Cup, which is a new founded tournament here very recently with MLS and the commissioner Don Garber, and a lot of backlash from fans about the Leagues Cup compared to the U.S. Open Cup. A lot of situations within the last year here recently with the MLS and their first teams and participating in the U.S. Open Cup. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. You know, when this all happened last off season, I said, man, it's gonna be tough to come from this because there is so much money behind the owners in MLS, and they can almost get what they want. But there's a
Mm,
few roadblocks here and there to that. Um, they they clearly have made this about the money. You can tell from the comments that Don Garber has made, from the competition executive Nelson Rodriguez has made. Um, it's been about the money. They've talked about how they don't want to lose money on road trips, on travel reimbursements, and so one of the things that we got this offseason was higher travel reimbursements. It's like, okay, you know, so everything that they've talked about value and things like that. They've talked about in terms of money. Well, from a different perspective, and I've only been around this for 7 years for the website, and Josh has been around for 20. Josh has told me stories of just how poor the marketing has been from these MLS teams or from U.S. soccer. And we can get into some of that in a little minutia if you want to, but I have stories of just MLS teams won't put the games on the website. Chivas USA famously lost. There was the first MLS team to lose to an amateur team in the
mm-hmm,
Open Cup on penalty kicks, and I want to say it was 2006. Um, and Josh says they never put the game on the website.
mm-hmm,
Not a reference to it, not a game article, nothing. It did not exist,
mm-hmm.
but it happened.
It did exist.
It happened. We had somebody there, and it's there for all to see. So you just that's just one example of many of just instances of stuff like that. And you go to the differences that the Leagues Cup and the Open Cup have in terms of what they get in marketing wise. Leagues Cup, your tickets are included. You have to opt out if you actually don't want tickets. Open Cup for a lot of teams, maybe you might get one if you're lucky, but a lot of times it's, hey, we got this game coming up. Make sure you purchase your tickets. And then people are like, well, it's 2 weeks notice, and I've got something coming up on a weekday in 2
Yeah.
weeks. Sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
can't make it. So those are the types of things that is so different with that, is because Leagues Cup is playing so far ahead. Where your games are going to be, when they're going to be, months
Yeah.
ahead of time. And Open Cup, it's, oh, we won this round, cool. Our next one's in 2 weeks. Oh, we got drawn at home. We got home
Yeah.
game. Got time to sell tickets. Like
Yeah.
that's not easy to do. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So you go to our counterparts in Europe on that, and the amount of time they have between their cup rounds, domestic cup rounds, more like 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
We do 2.
Yeah.
That's significant, I think.
Yeah. No, that's a great
And
point.
and just lack of putting any kind of marketing push behind it. You might see a few tweets about it. You might get an email, one email about it. Not compared to Leagues Cup. So it's just
No.
like, if they even put 50% of what the Leagues Cup and the Open Cup, I think they would see that return on investment. But I don't know. Who knows?
No,
We
I
don't, because
agree.
they don't put anything into it.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that what they're missing is, whatever you want to call it, a power struggle, the financial piece to it, like you're talking about. I think what they're missing is the magic of it and what that would actually create. You know, is a big team going to get upset every once in a while? Yeah, I mean it's going to happen. Yeah,
teams
you know,
teams are teams are going to rotate. Everybody's like, oh, we don't take it seriously. We put our backups.
absolutely,
That's a normal part of managing a team over the course of a
absolutely,
season. There is nothing that will prevent a manager from rotating a squad as an MLS manager against a lower division team. You're the better team, therefore you can weaken your lineup a little bit and still win the game. That's the theory
absolutely,
behind it, and it's a risk. And
and
sometimes you're upset.
absolutely. And
Well,
teams
sometimes
in
you're going to win.
and teams in Europe, they're in multiple competitions,
Yep.
and they have to kind of focus on, prioritize and things like that. But that's the spirit of the whole game and the history of it. And I think that what they're missing out on by taking kind of this perspective of the League Cup thing versus the U.S. Open Cup is that if they would allow the U.S. Open Cup to be the way it is and promote it like you're saying, put all the MLS teams in it from the start, that is there going to be an upset? Yeah, absolutely. But that's the magic of it, and that actually is going to build more passion, and energy around the entire country for soccer in general. I mean, just my opinion. I'm sure you're the same because you devote a lot of your free time to this whole subject. But
It's
that's what
fun.
I think
It's
they're
fun as
missing.
a neutral. It's like, I'm sorry if you're a fan of the team that's getting upset. Like, it sucks. I certainly have been on that side. Being a
Yeah,
fan of many minor league soccer teams, playing amateur teams, and they lose, and that feeling sucks, and it's the worst.
yeah, yeah.
But as a neutral, that is entirely enjoyable to watch.
Is that it's like one of my favorite things is in January, when the FA Cup comes back around when the big
Mm,
boys enter it, and you see a big team, Manchester City, the Arsenals of the world, going into an away game, at this tiny little ground somewhere in England, playing this really lower level team. Everyone comes out of the woodwork to see that game and the
yeah.
passion and stuff to see that. And yeah, they rotating players, absolutely, but it's still your one night, your one shot against the big boys, and there's just nothing like it. So before I get you out of here, Jake, one more question, kind of along those lines. What would you like to see in the future with the U.S. Open Cup?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, I've covered a little bit. Games are on weekdays with 2 weeks notice. Let's see what we can do there. Um, you know, it'd be great to have a consistent TV partner. The fact that we've been moving constantly with new TV partners year after year after year. Let's get one that just signs on for a few years. Whether that's Apple TV, I thought Apple TV was great for the quarterfinals. That's a great broadcast to watch. I think YouTube's a fine platform. It's free. It's the second most popular website in the world. Everybody's heard of it. It's good enough to watch your Mr. Beast or whatever. Why isn't
Or
it good enough to
this?
watch your soccer? Right. Or this. Like, what's the issue? Everybody's got it on
Yep.
their smart TV. So, you know, that's what's been good. I think they need to stay free. They need to stay free to watch, because that actually resulted in higher viewership. U.S.
Mhm.
Soccer showed a slide at a board of directors meeting. It's one of the things I tend to do, is pay attention to all these little governance things. And they said that compared to ESPN Plus the year prior, and in this meeting in 2023, they were up about 100, 150% in viewership, percentage wise. Yes, I don't know what that is in raw numbers, but hey, it's a start. It means
Absolutely.
more people were tuning in. It was a thing that to have it behind a paywall. So the games are free to watch, and that's how it should remain. So that's kind of the big stuff. Let's just have teams just put it on the website. Make more of an email about it. Make the tickets opt in. Say, I was once a Jacksonville Jaguar season ticket holder. My see some of that stuff there. When it came time around close to playoff time, it's, hey, here's the deal for playoffs. You can opt in, and you'll charge you this much for playoff tickets at these prices. And you sign, and then if you got in the playoffs, you just got auto charged. Like, that's just so simple to do. And all you have to do is just tell your season ticket holders, hey, here's the deal for Open Cup games. So we get selected for a round of 32 game. It's going to cost you, you can put it at a discount. U.S. Soccer doesn't care that early in the tournament. They only care about the ticket prices in the late stages of the tournament. Just do something. Just do something like that. Yeah. Then at least everybody has a ticket and is aware, oh, hey, this ticket appeared in my ticket manager and we got a game in 2 weeks. Okay, cool. I can either sell it, or maybe I can go or give it away to friends or something to get somebody there, because now you got tickets. I gotta do something with this. That's just that mindset. Instead of just being like, oh, well, you got to pay another $15 for a ticket and you're not going to go. Well, I'm not going to, I got something going on Wednesday. I'm just not going to buy tickets. That's a different way of looking at it. And a lot of these teams just don't do that. Yeah. Some do. Yeah. Some are better than that than others. I know Sporting Kansas City tends to include them in season tickets. I know Seattle has tended to do that for a lot of their tickets. It depends. But there's others that just absolutely just think of it as an afterthought.
Yeah. No. So I think a lot of it comes down to consistency and publicity, getting it out there and not getting the message out there and getting a consistent message out there. So as of right now, the U.S. Open Cup is in the semifinals, August 27th, Indy 11. The USL Championship team is the only USL team left in it. They're in the semifinals against Sporting Kansas City, and the other semifinals, LAFC against the Seattle Sounders. And the U.S. Open Cup will be final will be September 25th. So if you're not familiar with the U.S. Open Cup, I really urge you again to check these guys out, thecup.us. Follow them on social media, follow them on Twitter, check out their website. The amount of work they do and stuff is fantastic. Jake, all you guys at the cup.us, you really epitomize what we try to do here with this podcast, where we always say we want to bring light and publicity to people who maybe don't always get that in their smaller communities with soccer. And that's what the U.S. Open Cup is all about, is going out and supporting your local soccer team somewhere. So again, I can't tell you enough, not just yourself, but all those guys you mentioned, and so many volunteers around the country that people aren't even aware of, all of the help and all the support that they do all the time to put out that information from the cup.us. Just fantastic. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Jason, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And one last quick shout out. I got my Asheville City top on. Shout out to Coach Scott Wells, friend of mine. Great season. They just went out last night. Unfortunately, we're very unlucky. Went out in the national semifinals in USL 2. So shout out to Asheville City. Another great soccer town, great soccer culture there in their community. So again, go out, support local soccer. Check out thecup.us. And until next time, straight from the training ground. Check out our friends at Duke Brand FC for all of your coaching needs, notebooks, and more. Visit our friends at TractionSocks.com for your grip socks.